Bad Education was directed by Corey Finley, in which this is his second feature after having released Thoroughbreds back in 2018. After its successful premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival last year, HBO purchased the distribution rights, and then they finally released it on their platform this past weekend. The film is based on the true story of the biggest public school embezzlement scandal in American history, which occurred in the early 2000s in Roslyn, New York, a small affluent town in Long Island. The screenplay comes courtesy of a man named Mike Makowski, who was one of the students in this school district while all this crazy stuff was happening. His script is a far cry from his own personal experience at these schools though, for it instead pays attention to the figures at the center of this controversy. What we see through their experiences is how exactly this scandal took place and how it came to light, and it is absolutely riveting to watch. Yes, as the title of this video suggests, Bad Education is my favorite movie of 2020 so far. Granted, there haven't really been that many new movies over the past few months, even though I've really liked a few such as The Invisible Man, The Assistant, and Extraordinary. But this film is the first one I feel confident in saying I loved, and I would be happy to explain why. You see, this movie was written so that information is revealed to the audience at a deliberate pace. It would suck if during the first act of this movie we learned everything we need to know, and then the story struggles to retain our interest. For the purpose of creating drama, the film is very gradual with how it unravels its mysteries. We're introduced to this tight-knit and ambitious community, anchored by the school system they all feel proud of. In the middle of it all, we find the symbol of success, Dr. Frank Tassone, the superintendent of schools. The introductory 30 minutes of this movie might seem long, and arguably to a fault, but they're nonetheless crucial since seeds are planted for things that will happen later. We get just enough to have a base level understanding of the key characters, and then the movie immediately challenges our expectations by throwing around a bunch of curveballs once things really get going. This is why the film managed to be so demanding of my attention, for it takes an already inherently tantalizing subject, and then amplifies it by the specific way this true life story is told. Those curveballs I mentioned aren't there simply to provide cheap thrills either. Every little detail matters in the first act, for when the surprises and reveals come later on, they don't arrive completely without warning. The screenplay was structured so that the audience has subtle hints of what's to come, and when the truth does come out to both the audience and the characters, it makes those reveals all the more impactful, since it rewards the viewer who pays attention and keeps thinking about what they're watching. I've done my best to resist binging anything during this whole quarantine situation because I feel like it's an easy way to let one's mind waste away. TV, especially long-running dramas and sitcoms, can have a lot of filler, so in my opinion, binging sort of becomes a pointless waste of time after a while. This is why I greatly appreciated Bad Education, because every scene has a purpose, and not only adds up to an intellectually stimulating story that I'd be happy to see again, it also manages to be extremely entertaining from beginning to end. I owe this in large part to the well-written and darkly funny dialogue, of course, but also the actors who delivered it. Hugh Jackman easily gives one of the best performances of his entire career here, in which he pushed himself in directions we rarely get to see him take when on screen. His role required him to exude his natural charisma while also counterbalancing that with a calculated sense of control, human weakness, and the scumminess of a shady crook. I don't know how he managed to do all those things, but props to Corey Finley for getting this incredible performance out of him anyway. It was very difficult for me to take my eyes off him, and I hope that we don't forget his incredible work come awards season. The same absolutely goes for Allison Janney, who is practically on the exact same level as him. Despite having won an Oscar just a couple of years ago, I would be happy to see her receive a nomination as well. Of course, these performances would mean nothing if their characters weren't also given a considerable amount of depth, and rest assured, the whole entire cast had a lot of good character material to work with. Even though this movie does play up some of its shady, true-life situations for comedy, the delicate subject matter is still treated in a very serious and socially conscious manner, which remains rooted in the morally complex situations the characters get themselves into. I loved that the movie didn't shy away from the very human cost of this scandal for both the perpetrators and victims, while also recognizing that there are serious consequences for doing the right thing, which is telling the truth. This message is powerfully conveyed by the real, honest conversations Mike Makowski wrote for the characters, and it has plenty of relevance for our current day and age. So with that, I think Bad Education is a great film, not just because it has fantastic performances, a well-written screenplay, a strong sense of pace, and a compelling story based on true events, but because it actually has, as Sam the Eagle put it,
socially redeeming value.
Not that every movie needs to be that, for I like having my occasional John Wick and Marvel movies every now and then, but cinema should strive to be more than just entertainment. I've always thought that cinema is at its best when it can be both boundary-pushing art and entertainment for entertainment's sake. This movie absolutely lives up to those qualifications. I was riveted for the entire runtime, while also left thinking about many important things about society. In other words, if you want a reason to activate that free trial of HBO on your Amazon Prime or Hulu account, well, now you have one.